You're ready, please begin.
Yes, good morning. My name is Andrew Blumenfeld. I'm here on behalf of Lafayette Unified School District. Before I begin, I just want to recognize in attendance we have our District Superintendent Wendy Sinnett, as well as our Governing Board President Dan Jeffries, and the Lafayette City Council is represented by City Council Member Terry Walker. You've had the chance to hear firsthand from both districts, the petitioners, various communities at play here. And over the public comment and hearing period, you have in front of you now recommendations from staff about the final disposition of this petition, as well as the several conditions that underlie it. In our review of that analysis that undergirds those recommendations, though, we have found that county staff has offered conclusions that are starkly at odds with those of Lafayette Unified. We want to make you aware of those today. The first is that we have asserted and provided evidence to support the claim that there exists a unique community identity in Lafayette that is forged in large part by the unity of purpose that exists almost entirely between our city and our schools. County staff recommends that you become the first government agency ever to review that question and to conclude otherwise. We have also conducted exhaustive reviews of the various possible fiscal scenarios that might follow a transfer, and have concluded that under any realistic scenario, Lafayette Unified School District would not suffer financially. County staff recommends that you overrule the financial judgment of a school district with one of the highest financial ratings in the state. And finally, as a part of the rigorous due diligence we have applied to the consideration of this petition, we have responsibly identified a series of mitigating factors to address the transfer and therefore have passed multiple resolutions supporting it. County staff mistakes our due diligence for cold feet and concludes that those mitigating factors and contingencies are, quote, tantamount to not supporting the petition. So over the course of the next 15 minutes or so, I'm going to contend with each of those and hope that it will be ultimately your final determination that a transfer would be in the service of the county's efforts to organize school districts on the basis of substantial community identity, and that the fiscal impact on Lafayette Unified School District, especially as it pertains to facilities, is insignificant and otherwise incidental to the transfer and would certainly have no impact on the state. Ultimately, for these reasons, as well as for those expressed to the committee previously, the district continues to support the transfer and ask that the county do so as well. I will begin with the contention that the subject territory area shares no more substantial community identity with Lafayette Unified School District than with Glendale USD. I'll address the point only briefly, however, as it has been well contradicted by testimony and other evidence introduced at the public hearings, but as well as in the petitioner's briefs, which details the long history during which every body or agency that has ever taken up this issue has concluded the exact same thing, and that is, quote, that there is little doubt of the sense of community identity on the part of the residents in the area. This is a quote from the California Department of Education when considering an appeal on a prior attempt to transfer this territory in 1992. Before that, the petitioners also sought a transfer in the 1970s. At every opportunity to do so, this county committee has concluded that this transfer is appropriate and has recognized the substantial community identity at play, and that idea has been validated upon review. The only reason we stand here again today are for reasons having to do with the transfer process that are no longer relevant today and which have nothing to do with community identity. And yet the county recommendation does not attempt to distinguish this current petition with any of the prior instances in which this body has concluded that a transfer is appropriate. The mere fact that this effort has persisted for 50 years and that over that time period there have been 3 petitions belies the implication in the county recommendation that this is simply about coterminous boundaries. It is an overly reductive way to characterize the unique community identity that exists in Lafayette, often thought of by residents as a factory town where our schools are the social, political, and community life centers. The idea that one could be both part of Lafayette and not part of Lafayette schools is paradoxical. Further, there is a great deal of precedent from the State Board of Education that suggests the county committee should find that this condition has been substantially met. As recently as September 2016, in a different case, the State Board concluded that this condition was met when only 2 parcels on a 45-home block were not able to go to the same school district as the rest of that block. And the State Board of Education concluded that this meant that those 2 families could not participate in the full social network of that school block. It's hard to imagine them finding anything different in this case. For much of our remaining time, however, I want to turn your attention to the various instances in which the county staff recommendation has drawn conclusions regarding the district's finances that are starkly at odds with the district's own conclusions about its own finances. The district has a long history and reputation for sound fiscal stewardship, so it should surprise no one that La Cañada subject this petition to rigorous analysis before presenting its support to the county committee. As is the case with any responsible review, the district created several scenarios that could play out, testing multiple variables and developing a strategy for addressing the outcome in every tested eventuality. Unfortunately, it appears as if that level of due diligence has been misunderstood as hesitance. It is precisely the opposite. The district can more confidently support this petition because of this sort of planning. That argument alone, though, appears unpersuasive so far to county staff recommendations, which has cited the financial impact of the district as a reason to recommend disapproval in no less than 4 of the 9 conditions. So rather than merely make it again, I will walk the county committee through what that due diligence entailed on our behalf. First, the county staff asserts that there is no phase-in possible in this transfer, yet it is happening as we speak. To date, 117 students from the Sagebrush territory have already transferred into the district on an inter-district permit without any significant impact to either district. These transfers will continue between now and whatever the effective implementation of this transfer, likely years away, and so whatever the impact, it will be mitigated, and it has been mitigated and will continue to be mitigated. Second, while the county staff repeats the concern about fiscal impact of additional facilities in conditions 3, 5, 7, and 9, it is most relevant in condition 7. Condition 7 states that, quote, any increase in school facilities costs will be insignificant and otherwise incidental to the reorganization. The law does not require that the transfer have no associated facilities costs, just that they be insignificant and that they be incidental to the reorganization. The county staff report does not describe how it measures when a facilities cost rises to the level of significance or when it goes beyond that which might be considered incidental to the reorganization. This is a pretty critical omission, as the mere existence of cost alone cannot justify the recommendations, and yet it is cited as such in 4 of the 9 conditions. The California Department of Education handbook offers several items for the county committee to consider as evidence that a cost has become significant or goes beyond what would be incidental to the reorganization. The handbook references, for instance, local bonding capacity. Does a transfer reduce assessed valuation in either district such that their bonding capacity would be impaired? It also references the state schools facilities program. Does a transfer yield so few students in any one district that they no longer qualify for state building funding assistance? The answer to these and all the other questions raised in the California Department of Education handbook for this transfer is no. Noticeably, the handbook does not say that facilities costs that are directly tied to an increase in the student population is evidence that the condition has not been met. And of course, it couldn't possibly say that because it would run entirely counter to the language of the condition itself, which says that costs must be greater than those incidental to the cost of reorganization. So what are these costs? Of course, the costs are largely determined by the number of students that would transfer, and also that is the same variable that dictates the total revenue that would be generated for La Cañada by the transfer in order to help defray some of those costs. The district conservatively estimates that a transfer would lead to an additional 300 students for the purpose of our financial analysis. As I will demonstrate in a moment, to call this number conservative is a tremendous understatement. The Capital Advisors firm estimates that there are about 364 K-12 school-aged children living in the subject area. As of this school year, as I mentioned, 117 of those are already enrolled in the district schools and La Cañada schools on inter-district permits, bringing down the number of eligible students to transfer to 247. Of course, both districts agree that it is very unlikely that those who are enrolled in high school would wish to transfer, and both districts have agreed to honor those requests, as well as the requests of their siblings with permits. Further, we have every reason to believe that some portion of the population does not currently and would not in the future attend district public schools, availing themselves of such options as public charter schools, private schools, homeschooling, and the like. This all likely brings the total real number of transferable students to closer to 200. And yet, while it is likely that the actual number is closer to 200, La Cañada still used the 300 number to conduct our financial analysis in an abundance of caution. We next examine how a transfer would impact revenue. We assume an increase in our yearly LCFF base grant of a little bit larger than $2 million for 300 students. Each student also generates about $1,300 in other sources of revenue, including state and federal grants. If new families are expected to contribute philanthropically to the district at largely the same rates as the rest of the district, that brings another about $150,000 a year. And La Piñata has a $450 parcel tax. 19.2% of our current residents or homeowners are qualified for exemptions under that, so we applied that same conservative 19.2% exemption to the 800 or so parcels that are in the Sagebrush area, and that yields about 703 parcels. $450 each is a little over $300,000 in revenue each year to the district. Taken together, this is a little over $3 million annually for the transfer of 300 students. We next examined the costs. We considered both ongoing as well as one-time capital expenses. We estimate an annual cost per student of about a little under $9,500 per student. This is based on figures that we report in our school accountability report cards. We next assign a 10% inflation factor to account for growth in costs, especially as those pertain to personnel. And we also apply a 10% efficiency factor to these figures. That factor is when we estimate that there are some additional costs that are brought on by the students that can be absorbed into the existing cost structure. Of course, it is a difficult number to predict, though 10% seems eminently conservative when you consider that of 300 students, that would mean, for instance, that we were only able to find existing classrooms for 30 of those 300 students. When you take all of that together, it yields an annual cost of about $2.8 million. It's worth noting that at this point that means that the annual revenue generated for the district by 300 students exceeds the annual cost that is incurred when we have to educate 300 additional students. We turn next to facilities costs. We receive estimates that it costs about $86,000 to both build and install classrooms, and that we estimate we'll need about 8 of them. This leads to a one-time facilities cost of a little less than $700,000. And it's worth noting here that then the net annual revenue from the transfer eclipses the capital cost of 300 students in about 3 years. And of course, it is important to emphasize that this analysis assumes 300 students transfer and that they do so all at once. A figure that would mean that not a single student wished to stay in GUSD, not even the seniors in high school. It assumes that 100% of school-aged children living in the area would choose to go to district schools. And with all of that, it still assumes that there would be a substantial growth in the student-age population that would move in and live in this district all in 1 year. And you'll notice, of course, that the analysis includes no estimated cost of living adjustment to the LCFF grant that La Piñata would receive to help address the cost of these students. And contrary to the interpretation of the county staff report, the analysis is done assuming that 100% of those students exist and transfer all in a single year. The district stands by its assertion that a phase-in period is beneficial to both districts and the families involved, and it also likely yields an efficiency factor far in excess of 10%, further driving down the cost of all kind. But, as has been noted, such a phase-in is already underway. Since 2013, there have been 227 requests from the territory into La Piñata, and 117 of those have been granted. We hope that this direct window into our analysis allows you to see why we find the county staff recommendation to be an incomplete reflection of our district's position on the petition, as well as the impact that it will have on our community. One final point, though, that I will make is one that we raised at both public hearings, but which is absent in the county staff report. Yet it may be one of the best encapsulations of both of the major takeaways we wish to leave you with today, and that is that LCUSD has thoroughly reviewed the impact of the petition before supporting it, and that there is a substantial community identity that links our city with our schools. And that is the role of the city of La Piñata in this entire process. The county committee will recall that the mayor of La Piñata presented the support of the city at both public hearings as part of the district's presentation. I want to put up an excerpt from one of his statements. He said, "We are committed to unifying our community, not just in word but in action, and we are committed to working with the school district to identify additional resources and to implement financial solutions that could be necessary to eliminate any disruption to the educational program of their students." Not only does this sentiment and commitment demonstrate the lengths to which the community has gone to ensure that any possible impact, even ones that the most conservative analysis could not possibly predict, are addressed, It is also likely the very best and most quintessential example of the very type of cooperation between our city and our schools that is so emblematic of life in La Cañada, and from which the Sagebrush community is so needlessly excluded. We thank you for your consideration of this important matter, and we respectfully request that you reject the staff recommendation and approve this petition.